Hey guys, so I want to talk about Opus XI in terms of competitive play, and I'm going to do it using the Euroleague as a narrative device. It's an event, an international event organised and run by Tim Schilder, also known as EuroTim to many Australians, with the purpose of filling the competitive void due to coronavirus, with all the other events being cancelled. That's great for me because I live for competition and I was worried there wouldn't be an outlet during lockdown with all the major events being cancelled. And although I think it's technically unofficial, I'd say it's as close as we'll get currently, and Tim is employed by Square Enix after all. But that's just the background. I actually want to talk about Opus XI in general, but to support my points, this is my decks that I ran in the EuroLeague. One interesting thing about it is that the format changes each week, but what I actually want to focus on here is the percentages. So I went undefeated. I am currently undefeated still. I've got finals on Wednesday, but obviously I don't expect you to take it all in. Just looking at this is like a lot of cards here, but I will show you this. Oops, this one. This is the amount of copies I played of the 9 cards I played the most of in Fire, with the amount of copies compared to the amount available. So obviously Cloud's a bit lower available because he's not in L3, same as Mont Blanc. And yeah, so you notice Braska's Final Leon and March I played 3 of every time possible. I played maximum copies of those 2 cards. And this is the point I kind of want to hammer home about Opus XI. There's basically, to me, I believe, in all honesty, that if you are not playing March and Ritz at minimum, then you are not giving yourself the best chance to win. I mean, it's not. Everyone could see that that's a good combo when those 2 cards are spoiled. That's not surprising. I don't think some people maybe don't quite understand yet how much higher up that, like how much more insane that is than anything that's existed before. It's basically unprecedented. It is obscenely far above anything we've had in an FFTCG before. If I could put a graph down of the power level of cards, and you'd have the top end stuff like Valaport, Diablos, Pain, those kind of cards up in the top end, and they're like really high up. March and Ritz are noticeably higher than that. And I can talk about it a bit more, but as you see some of the other cards, Lilty is the Fire card that searches Ritz. I find it insane they released a card that, in the correct color, that searches the one card you need to find, when there's already an EX searcher for March himself in that color also. And also for context, if I was to... So the Fire Ice deck that I played at the start, that was right at the start of the format, I knew I wanted to play March and Brassica's Final Leon, but I didn't, hadn't refined my ideas on exactly all the amount of copies I want to play things. But if I wanted to... My Fire Ice deck at the moment, if I was going to modify, would have this. This is if I modified the decks that I played. So the Fire Ice would have the 3 Mont Blocks. That was where they were missing before. And I would be playing 3 Uke, because obviously Lilty can hit Ice cards. So if you're playing Ice with Fire, then Uke is the card that searches Ritz. And so they're effectively the same card in that case. They're just, a 3 CP backup that searches Ritz. So I'm kind of grouping it in the same spot. But yeah, if I could do this one again, those would be the new percentages. I would play 3 copies of Ritz in everything. I did play 2 in some of my decks because I felt, it was off color and I just need to find 1 and then it's live for the rest of the game. But people, Kadaj is very good and very popular, and I knew it would be, but just the fact having Ritz is too good, and even on the off chance that your Ritzes get removed, you just want 3, just because there's basically no better card you can ever have on the field at any time. So you should just max out on 3, in my opinion, and I believe that now, and I will probably continue to play 3 in everything from now on, because a couple of the games that I had slight amount of trouble was because I didn't have enough Ritzes. Either the first one got removed and I didn't see another one, or both of them got removed, or one went to damage and one got removed, stuff like that. But anyway, and some of the other Fire cards I just put there as well. I do think Shadow is very good, but I do think his use is hampered by the fact that the backups you want in your Fire deck, you already have to play 3 Mont Blanc and 3 Lilty, in my opinion. You want those cards to get your March and Ritz engine as often as possible, and they're not 2-cost backups. So to have enough 2-cost backups in your deck for Shadow to be reliable, then you're quite restricted. If you're playing whatever other color you're playing, whatever other cards you're playing, they might also need backups that aren't 2-cost, and that lowers the amount of space you can actually have 2-cost backups. And that's the only reason that Shadow is not higher amount of count here. But I do think the card is very good, and if you have the room for, say, 9+ 2-cost backups in your Fire deck, you probably do want to play it. And Belias is just a really good EX. That's the reason I played quite a few of those. And Terra, same thing again. And also, Terra has the incidental synergy with Interceptor. If you're playing Shadow and you have Interceptor, then you've got Terra as another haste card that you can finish the game. And obviously, Cloud is insane. We know Cloud is insane. He's clearly proven himself nuts. But obviously the other card is Braska's Finally On, and this card is basically the nail in the coffin if you manage to not lose to March and Ritz. It's very, very hard to deal with for almost every deck and almost every card. In fact, there is almost no clean outs to it. The cleanest competitive out is Shantoto. Other than that, you maybe have Zalira. The 4-cost Zalira can kill it without triggering it. The 1-cost Zalira can kill it and is pretty... you still lose a forward, so you actually end up usually still trading even, but that's actually a pretty good result against Braska's Finally On, and Diablos has a similar deal. Other than those things, though, there's very few ways to get past Braska's without losing everything, or without, losing a lot of CP value or losing your board presence. It's basically Dataluma without setup required, and the damage is unpreventable, which were basically the only 2 weaknesses of Dataluma before. So he's basically Dataluma with no weaknesses, and it's live from the first turn of the game. So that card is insane, and I mean, it was obviously good, but I didn't, when I first saw the spoiler, I didn't quite appreciate how oppressive it would be. And so, again, if you're losing to March and Ritz in the first place because they're basically free. So, okay, the main point of March and Ritz is that you are paying nothing for 2 forwards, both medium size, and one of them is a constant threat, is pressure. So Ritz basically has the attributes of some of the biggest threats in the game. It's basically like a Lock Genesis type card. It's better than that, actually, for the record. It's like those cards, but it costs literally nothing. You also get a 7k vanilla alongside it, which not only gives you an extra body to, block, attack, that kind of stuff, it also protects her from, like, Fanfred Veritas or those kind of things. This free body you've got sitting there, and that also protects Braska from those cards. And the fact that they have all these extra lines of text they don't even need. So yeah, Ritz, gives you plus 3 CP every time it attacks. The first attack, it will pay off the March that you paid, or it will pay off even more if your March was cheaper. I don't know why March has that extra effect, and there's actually quite a few FFTA backups, including Mont Blanc, which searches him. Pretty much there is no way to ever come out on top if your opponent uses March and Ritz. You have to kill the Ritz the moment it hits the field, before it attacks the first time. It has haste for some reason, so that's very difficult to do reliably and efficiently. If you have to do something during your opponent's turn to kill something, an 8k or maybe 7k, you can kill the March to stop the haste, but then you're gonna have to kill the Ritz another way next turn. You usually have to overinvest, or invest a decent amount to do that. There's not many removals that are cheap enough that you're not at least hampering your plans by having to do that. I think Hecaton and Aramu are probably the 2 best examples. They are probably the 2 cards that are most likely, and I'm talking about the 2-cost Ramu that hits something to turn it into display. I'm actually advocating that card. It might actually be good in a world where Ritz exists, because yeah, those are cheap enough. They have just got 1 card. A lot of the other removals cost 2 discards, like Ifrits, Bahamut's, those kind of cards. But anyway, I've talked enough about that. I will go through each deck individually and kind of talk about my thought process and maybe what I would change and stuff. So let's move this out of the way. The first deck I played, this was standard format, was Fire Ice. So this was right at the start of the format. I knew I wanted to play March and Ritz. I knew I wanted to play Braska's Finally On. So I knew it had to be something fire. I had a Monofire version at the same time. It was either Monofire or this, and I found the Monofire deck more boring, so I just played the one I found more interesting, which is this, because I love Snow, and this has Zalira. So the reason there's 3 Zalira in there is to kill Braska's Finally On, but as it turns out, early on there wasn't nearly as many Braskas around as I expected, so that actually didn't really help that much, but it doesn't matter because I'm playing March here. Also, one of the things I really like about the Fire Ice is you've got Zidane with Snow. So I like the Zidane a lot, but I don't think it's that good unless you have a way to cheat it through, and Snow is that card. So that's one of the reasons I played this. Also, this gave me a chance to play with Shadow, who, like I said, and we know is really cool. And yeah, it was good. Again, if I was to change something, my Fire Ice decks these days, I would have Uke and Mont Blanc in there, just because the March Retention is too good. Otherwise, though, pretty much, yep, was happy with that. That was good. Next round was L3, and I've never played L3 before. I never built a deck for L3, never played L3. But all the cards I wanted in L3, Braskas, March, etc. So I just played those cards and a bunch of EXs. That was pretty much my L3 deck. So as you can see, I think there's like 25 EXs or something in there. I played the Dark Engine because that's another thing that gives you value. Yeah, this is where I found out that the Earth EXs, when they all say search a card that wins you the game, they're really, really good. So that's Tyro, Kusith, and Gabranth. Those 3 cards, you can get either a March or a Braskas, or if you've already got those, you can get whatever you want, basically. But those EXs, when your forwards are such insane power level, those cards are really depressing to have for your opponent when you hit them as EX. And actually, Kusith becomes really hard castable with March, because you still gain, like, you come out on top if you cast Kusith to get March Ritz, which is crazy to me, because normally Kusith as a hard cast is inefficient, and that's kind of its weakness. But yeah, when you got March, that's not a weakness anymore. So that went really well, and actually Tim featured this on a podcast, I believe, and mentioned a few people played a similar or same, I don't know, deck, and all won their games as well. So that's, I guess, kind of motivating. Round 3 was the Archetype round, and that's, you have to play at least 15 of the same job, and that job couldn't be standard unit. And so my options, I basically wanted to play the least intrusive archetype, where I could still play, my fire engine alongside it. My options was this is Avalanche. So the reason I chose Avalanche in the end is because you've just basically got 3 backups that take up 9 of the spots, and then I just played 6 Barret, because both those Barrets are actually pretty decent, honestly. Like, Aerith is also a card I really like, and it gave me a chance to play a light dark card that wasn't Kadaj, because Kadaj is nuts, for the record. But this just gave me something different to play here. And yeah, the Barrets was kind of cool, I guess. But again, it was mainly because it was the least intrusive engine that still did good stuff. My other options were Fire Ice with Moogle backups, and that was okay. I just didn't test it enough, and I mean, I've played Moogle decks before. It wasn't that interesting to me. Fire Water Summoners, which I tried for a bit and decided no. And Fire Water Warriors of Light, which I thought of right before my game and was like, nah, I don't have time to build that and to play around with it. So I'll just go with the Avalanche. And again, that worked well. Again, I would probably up Ritz to 3, and I'll do that in all my decks from now on. But yeah, that was cool. Round 4 was 2 of, so max card limit 2 instead of 3. And this was the birth of Doga. So, for me at least. In the construct deck that you'll see that I played for top 8 and top 4. But yeah, so naturally I can still play all the cards I want, but now I have to find a bunch of other cards to play, because I can't just max out on all, max 3 of on all the cards I was already playing. And I grabbed a bunch of EXs. As you can see, there's like Titans in here. I've got, the Beliuses, Kusiths, Cecil I even added, played some one of other 5 costs like Arden and Jekt for the Gabriant search. But this is also where I got a chance to use Suzuhisa, and I love Suzuhisa as a card. I've always been a fan of Suzuhisa, and what I realize is especially relevant right now is that he blocks Shantoto, and like that was always a relevant point about him, but now that's even more relevant, because Shantoto is, again, like I said, basically the only clean competitive out to Braskas. So by putting a Suzuhisa on the field next to Braskas, you basically invalidate that, which is very, very solid, and also protects, if you have your March Ritz, because Ritz getting removed can be annoying too. And just drawing cards is good, right? Especially when Braskas cost 7. So sometimes the issue with the 7 cost naturally is that you need to have a bunch of cards in hand to invest into it in the first place. And of course, it will start paying itself back as it gets targeted or attacks or whatever. But that investment in the first place, having those extra 2 cards at the start of your turn, being able to start with like 8 or 9 cards makes it a lot easier to invest in that kind of stuff. And yeah, then there's just a bunch of searches and things. This is where I played Jesse for the first time as well, because Jesse searches Kadaj and Cloud. So those are 3 really good cards. In fact, those 2 cards together are very good as well. So that was just a natural fit with the Earth cards. And this is where Beastmaster came. So Beastmaster, I was not, I didn't even think about when I first, at the start of Opus 11. Actually, Ryan Stalarski mentioned it to me. I'm like, oh yes, Beastmaster is a FFTA 3 cost. So it's another card that March can revive. Not that you usually want to revive it. You'd usually rather revive Ritz. Of course, sometimes Ritz is already in play. Or sometimes you just need the backup early and you haven't seen Ritz yet. But the main point is that it's because it's FFTA, it makes it much cheaper. And it's a 1-cost backup rather than a 2-cost like Black Mage. So it's really nice like that. And this gave me a chance to use Phoenix Porom Doga, which is something that I've wanted to play in the past, actually. Like last set, I actually wanted to build a deck like that, but anytime I tried to build that deck, it was very awkward, basically because of the 3 colors. There wasn't a way to search the Porom except with more water cards, and so you couldn't really just play an Earth Fire Splash the Porom. And just in general, it was quite awkward. But now Beastmaster kind of fixes all that. It just ties it all together, and so that was really fun. Yeah, that's basically that. That's where that kind of came from. Then top 32 and top 16 was mono, as we had to play 35 of the same element at least, and Valifor was banned for this also, for the record. Not that that mattered to me, I was not going to play a deck with Valifor in it. So this is, the obvious choice was mono fire. I tried to actually build a 35 fire card deck and still have cool stuff in the other 15 slots, but it was just not worth in the end. I was making too many compromises to fit the, to cut it down to 15 non-fire cards, so I just played the mono fire. Like I said, this is probably the first deck that I built in Opus 11, and I was just so bored of it, but is the natural choice, because how else am I going to abuse March Braskas when I have to play 35 of the same cards? And yeah, that went exactly as expected. I played against a mono Wind that had the fire card splashed in, which is fair enough, obviously, because Ritz is Wind, and they've got Saganashi, Stola, that kind of stuff to protect Braskas and Ritz, so it was fine, but yeah, there's not much else to say there. Oh, no, actually, what I should mention, the one I played the first round, this is slightly misleading, this is the one I played in the second game. The first game, I actually didn't have the Rain Frit in there. I had, I believe it was Zedane, Vivi, and Furion, and that was fine as well. However, I wanted more neutral cards. So the problem with those 3 cards is that they're only good if you're removing something with them when they enter. So if your opponent has nothing, you still want to be able to play things. If I'm already at 5 backups, then what am I going to play? So that's why I put Rain and Frit in. They're just nice things to chuck on the field. They're extra bodies. They sit around. You know, Frit threatens the Frit. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, so that's just pretty whatever. And top 8 for this deck, I had people be like, what the hell is this, when they saw it in the top 8 decks posted, and fair enough, I mean, it's random crap going on here. Again, like I said, this is kind of the culmination of when I found out how good the Earthy X's were, and when I found out how I could splash Beastmaster and Doga from the other 2 rounds that had the deck building instructions that pushed me into that. And yeah, I mean, it's good. I really like the protection that Phoenix gives you. I really like the way it makes it very hard for decks to cheese damage through to kill you. When you've got the threat of a Phoenix being able to revive a blocker in between attacks, it's really hard for decks to kind of those aggro eels kind of combo decks that try and kill you in one turn, take you from like 4 to 7 at once. It makes it really hard for them to set up a situation where they can actually get enough attacks through, because you've just got that one last thing to block whatever, and they usually can't get through for the 7th damage in that case. And obviously then you've also got the recurring of that. If you've got Dogi, you can break backups off it, but also just the recurring AoE damage, especially when stuff like Terra and say Tuna's around. You can actually clear boards even, and you would see that I actually lost the game in the end, but the game 1 I played in my top 8 game against Nick Leroy, I cleared his board twice with Phoenix, because I had say Tuna, and Rain is 8k, Gabranth and Lana 5ks, well, Lana's 5k once Rain dies, so if they Rain attacks, you can Phoenix Porom, that does 3k, Porom blocks 2k to the Rain, and then play another Phoenix, get the Porom back again, that's another 3k to their board, that will kill all the 5ks, and the Rain will die as well. And that's pretty funny, but the reason, actually, I will say the reason I lost that game probably is because I discarded Ritz turn 1 to play the Mont Blanc, and he dropped the Kadaj to remove that Ritz, and I didn't see another Ritz for the rest of the game. Well, I saw one really late, by the time it didn't really matter anymore, but another reason why I will play 3 Ritz from now on. So yeah, like I said, most of the games I had trouble were the ones where Ritz wasn't available. And then my second top 4 game was against Ninjas, and unfortunately Ninjas have a really hard time against Cloud, so all I had to do was play Cloud, search it with either Tara or Jesse if I needed to. Cloud kills the first edge, and then from then on, if they ever want to try and push through, they have to, if the Cloud's there to block, which it usually is because Kadaj can give it Brave, they're going to lose heaps of things attacking into it. And also Phoenix turned out to be really good against Ninjas as well, fair enough, because it kills Sukanoa outright. And again, Ninjas kind of want to be able to cheat damage through. He had stuff like Bahamut Zero and the purple one in his deck that doubles all you guys. So with those cards around, having the Phoenix as the, guaranteeing that I can't just get cheesed for damage to the win was very useful as well. So yeah, and then we have finals coming up next, and I haven't decided what I'm playing yet. The problem is I cannot play. I have to play a deck without Braskas and March. It's not something I've had to do yet. So I have to find which of my non-fire decks. I do have them. Of course, I have tried to build decks without Braskas and March, just because I love deck building, and there's only so many decks I can build with, fire in them. So I have some non-fire decks. I haven't decided which one I want to play yet. None of them I'm happy enough with that I feel like they can compete in a March meta, which is theoretically what the meta will be. And I mean, Sasha knows that as well. Sasha will definitely play a deck with March in it. So, yeah, but basically, yeah, that's my thoughts on Opus 11 currently. And you'll see other tournaments that have been played. There's some of the lists I've seen from Top Cuts and stuff. There is, Marches and Braskas all around, even in, decks that aren't even primarily fire. They're just getting splashed into, decks that can generate rainbow mana, like Tyro, Chaos, whatever. So, people do realize how insane it is, and I just need to emphasize how insane it is, and how there's basically no real good way around it. That's the problem, because it's so free. You can only maybe get even at best sometimes. Basically, you just have to take the hit, take the loss of CP, and hope that your deck can generate you the CP back. The most reliable way to stop the March going off, I think, is maybe White Mage. That's still quite an investment, and Mist Dragon's another one. But the problem is with those instant speed options, if you're doing them during your opponent's turn, they cost quite a bit. You know, White Mage you have to sack it back up and pay 1. Mist Dragon you have to pay 3, which is usually 4 during your opponent's turn. So March basically turns into either Sephiroth or break an opponent's backup. And that's still really good. So they're actually still winning out in that case. Even though they don't get the writs, they're still coming out on top. And that's the big problem. Is that, and again, like I said, even if you get through the March writs, you know, you weather the storm, you get into a good position. Braskus comes down, you need a way around that too. You need to deal with that some way, usually. Sometimes maybe you can't deal with it, and you just have to hope you can push through with your bodies and until it clears your board. Yeah, that's... Anyway, I've rambled so much. I apologize, but that's all my thoughts. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you. Thanks to Tim. Huge thanks to Tim for running the tournament. It was, you know, really fun. Really scratched that like competitive itch for me at least, and I believe some of the other, you know, top Euro players. So yeah, cheers for watching, guys.